We will continue our day with a workshop about preemptive cybersecurity. The workshop is presented by Mr. Hadi Khouri, a cybersecurity interpreter, advisor, and auditor from Sikimia, France.
Marhaba, and thank you for being courageous and not leaving the room. So, I'm Hadi Al-Khouri. I am an independent cybersecurity advisor, and my duty today is to reset your brain. I need to reset your brain. But before resetting your brain, I need to ask you the following question. How many of you have watched bank robbery movies? Everyone. Okay, what strikes you? What strikes you when the thieves or the gang builds up his attack towards the bank? What strikes you during the preparation? What do they do? Yes? What else? They have always these large plans in front of their eyes, okay? They have several plans of the banking establishment they want to rob. They even, today, look for plans that are left on the darknet, and they need to spot very precisely where is a safe, okay? So now that we have said that, what's the main difference between physical security and digital security, in your opinion? What's the main difference between these two disciplines? You are hungry? So what's the difference between both? In physical security, you see the asset, you see the access control, you see the barrier, you see the underlying physical resources, okay, that allow you to have those premises. Whereas in digital security, you don't see the data flow, okay? So all the underlying layers that support your business processes, you don't see them. And if you don't see them, you cannot protect them. But the attackers, the hackers that spend months and years preparing for an attack, they have already drawn your data flow. And they know your business processes much better than you. So if you want to outsmart attackers, okay, if you want to outsmart them, you need to play with me a serious game during half an hour, okay? We will play a game together. Thank you. So this is a board game, okay? And we will play it together. And I believe that in the room, we have IT guys, right? Who's an IT guy or lady here? Okay, we have business representative. Do we have business lines representative? No? Yes? Okay, so it's a perfect audience to play this game. And this game has rules. So the rules are the following. We will be in the shoes of a piece of data, okay? It could be a WhatsApp message, it could be a Facebook post, it could be an email. And we will sit next to this piece of data and we will try to walk with it, okay, throughout its life cycle, okay? So this is rule number one. So I need you to buckle up and we will be sitting next to this piece of data and we will be doing this journey together. This is the first rule. The second rule is that during this journey, we will cross several layers. And the layers are the following. There are 7 layers, okay? It's like the French pastry, a millefeuille, okay? Imagine a millefeuille, and we will dig into this millefeuille from its upper layer until its most profound layers. And the layers are the following. The organization one, the business one, the application one, the system one, the hardware one, and the infrastructure one. It may look a bit abstract for you, but we will take them one by one. Let's consider that you go to a retail store, any retail store in the country. You walk into the store, and the vendor comes towards you with an iPad, telling you, "Hello, sir, what's your name? How can I help you?" Okay? When he does that, now with the digital transformation of retail, he has an iPad or a smartphone with an application, okay? So let us try to reconstitute what happens when we give him our name and he checks it out on his iPad, Okay? So let us walk through these 6 layers. Excuse me, but the projector is a bit awkward in terms of resolution. So we have those 6 or 7 layers. The first layer is the organization one. It's extremely important for you, whenever you want to outsmart attackers, you need to come up with a cartography of actors, okay? Who are all the involved actors in a business process, whether inside your organization or outside the organization, which means your organization, your customers, B2C, B2B, your suppliers, your providers, your ISP, your telco provider, etc. So you need, on the O layer, to identify all those actors. This is the very first step. A second step, per actor, you need to understand which business unit within this company, okay, is in charge of delivering this process. So here, when it comes to retail, it will be like, let's take any retail, Zara, H&M, whatever, you pick your favorite brand. The guy, the vendor, is employed by a business unit. This business unit is a B2C business unit that is a regional business unit for, let us say, the Middle East and Gulf region, okay? So within this involved actor that we have identified on the O layer, underneath it, we will identify the business unit, or more preferably the guy or the lady who's in charge of this process. And we call this guy responsable du traitement, okay? This is a processing owner. And we will talk a bit later on that with the GDPR regulation for data protection and data privacy. This guy or lady that welcomed us with the iPad or the smartphone had an application, okay? And this application will fit on this layer. And whenever you complete this board game by picking all the cubes, you will see that this is the layer that is the easiest one to identify within your organizations. Why? Why is it extremely easy in organizations not to spot the first two layers, nor the underlying layers, but this one? For the simple reason that the application layer is the layer that represents the eyes of the end users, right? On a daily basis, they see this human-to-machine interface. So everyone in a company is more or less comfortable with this application layer. Now, once we have said that, and we have the administrator, the application administrator that fed up with all the information, now we need to dig deeply into what supports this application. And this is where we have a huge gap between business and IT in organizations. So you have 2 challenges. You have the challenge to reconstitute and see clearly through the data flows, and at the same time you need to bridge the gap between business guys and IT guys, okay? So here you have a gap. These people don't communicate. And in order for them to communicate, they need to find a common ground. They need to meet the other persons halfway. So they need at least to have an inclusive methodology like this one or an equivalent one that will say, look, whenever I try to play this game and I have a hesitation on one cube because I'm not sure that the cube fits here, or I'm not sure that it's the good cube, I'm gonna ask a question to one of my colleagues. And one of my colleagues is not one of my colleagues within the IT department who has the same academical background as me. I'm gonna ask someone else in the company that has a different mindset. And this is where collaboration will produce very efficient risk management results. I was very glad to hear that Lebanese ISF mantra today is ma'an, together. So you need to tackle this together, okay? And this is very inclusive because whenever you do this brainstorming exercise, you will be able to respect the jobs of each one in the company. The legal guys will be able to identify the legal entities with whom you have contracts. So they will be able to populate the O layer. The business owners, the business process owners will be comfortable, okay? Saying, yes, this process is of my responsibility. The administrators of applications also will feel that they have their own swim lane here. They have their own layer. So if you have like 5, 6, 7 people around the table that has different mindsets, but that can bring together this collective intelligence, you will be able to populate this data flow. And this data flow of me granted by a retailer, okay, at Zara or whatever, will allow me to walk along the data life cycle until the end. And one aspect, one 7th layer here I add, and on which I emphasize, is the layer where you have the flags. Information systems are becoming much more complex, okay? We have no barriers in the cyberspace. But when it comes to regulations, when it comes to laws, when it comes to collaboration, it's national regulations and laws that apply. So we need, whenever we reconstitute this data flow, we need to try to guess as precisely as possible where is the data center that stores this piece of data, okay? So here in this example, I'm starting in France, then I'm going to Salesforce, and Salesforce is in the US, okay? And if at a certain moment I use Office 365, you need to know that Office 365 synchronously at the same time copies the same set of data and stores it on 4 different geographical locations across the globe. So here you will have maybe the US, Singapore, Brazil, etc. Okay, so you need to dig deep into the contracts you have signed and check with the vendors, the different cloud, software as a service, platform as a service, and ask them, really tell me where is physically the data center, because the geographical location of the data center will induce the jurisdiction under which you operate. And this will induce the collaboration you will instigate with the other law enforcement bodies. Here you see a small flag of the European Union, and I wanted to tackle a subject that is being asked about in Lebanon also. You have a regulation on May 25th, 2018, that will enter into force. This is the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, okay? It's a very strong and game-changing regulation. It's the strongest maybe of the last 20 years, because European legislators wanted somehow to put a stop to the far west mindset of dealing with data, okay? So this GDPR regulation applies to any entity worldwide that manipulates, stores, or processes the personal identifiable information, the PII, the personal data, يعني البيانات الشخصية of Europeans, or of people residents in Europe, even if they don't have the European citizenship. So you see here, if you want to at least start abiding by this regulation, you need to reconstitute your data flows, and you need to tell your customers who will opt in, who will give you a formal permission to process their data for a given output. You will need to be extremely transparent, telling them, I'm going to take your birth date, or I'm going to check this, or I'm going to analyze this for this specific output, okay? And your data is stored in this data center, in this exact physical geographical location. And I'm also going to do my own risk analysis. I'm going to put security measures to protect this data. And if this data is breached, I'm going to notify the regulator and the customers, okay? And I'm going to allow you, customer, at any moment to ask me to delete my personal information from all your systems. So if you don't play this game at the minima, you won't be able to go into such strong engagements. What I'm telling you is not playing on the law to instigate action, but such ways of reconstituting business processes and data flows have collateral benefits. You imagine you cannot do your business continuity if you don't have this. You imagine that you cannot do risk analysis if you don't do this. This morning, the different panelists and speakers spoke about attacks, how the attack will occur, so it's up to you as defenders to try to put yourselves in the shoes of the hacker. And this is what we call hacker stories. You have user stories. This is the user story. These are the good guys using the system. You need to ask yourself, what happens if I change the mask and I put the mask of my direct competitor? I put the mask of a mafia that wants to reconvert itself into hacking because it's less traceable and it's less costly, etc. I'm going to put the mask of the terrorist, etc., etc., etc. So if you don't see a map, if you don't see a drawing, you won't be able to muscle up your imagination. And you won't be able to do preemptive security, which was really the maître mot of this morning. So I don't want to take a lot of time. I'm open to questions maybe because I like interactivity with the room. Was it crystal clear, or are you afraid, or you didn't see it coming? So who has done similar things or tried to reconstitute his or her business processes with a clear identification of the underlying IT assets? Who tried to do that? Okay, now I'm afraid. Now I'm really afraid. Okay, so my advice to you is there are methodologies to do this. People telling you that it's onerous, that it's expensive, that it's time-consuming, that it's not feasible, are lying to you, okay? You can have a set of 3 to 5 workshops and cover 3 to 5 major processes in your organization. So if I have one single advice to give you, okay, wait for laws, okay? Wait for inter-nations collaboration, but at the same time, do your homework. And this homework is try to have a common understanding together of the data flow, and this will help you notify, detect, analyze risks, and protect your assets. And thank you.